In my previous life, my best friend had her father, who was the head of the admissions office, swap my college entrance exam scores with hers for the school heartthrob she secretly loved. I failed the exam, became mentally unstable, and died in a car accident. When I opened my eyes again, I had already taken the recommendation exam early, bypassing the college entrance exam. This time, let's see who else you can steal from. I woke up in pain. The pain was peculiar, as if someone had taken apart every bone in my body one by one and then clumsily reassembled them. Something inside my chest was desperately trying to push out. A metallic taste of blood filled my throat, and a sharp buzzing rang in my ears. I remembered that white light, the headlights of a truck, like two pale suns, rolling straight toward me. I remembered the sensation of my body flying into the air, light and weightless, like a rag doll casually discarded. I remembered the moment I hit the ground, the back of my head striking the curb with a dull thud, and then all sound vanished. I remembered how I died, so I should be dead now, but I heard voices, faint, fragmented. "You okay? Are you feeling unwell?" That voice, so sweet it could drip with honey, pierced through my eardrums like a needle, traveling along my blood vessels straight into my heart. My heart suddenly clenched, then began to race wildly, making my entire chest tremble. I snapped my eyes open, and Fong Yuanyuan's face was right in front of me, so close I could see the tiny sweat droplet on the tip of her nose, and smell the sweet strawberry scent of her body lotion. Her brows were slightly furrowed, her lips pressed into a perfectly concerned curve, her eyes filled with worry. It was that face, the last face I saw before I died in my previous life, not at the scene of the accident. She wasn't there during the crash, I mean earlier, a few hours before. It was the day of the college entrance exam score release, and I found out I only scored 387, over 200 points lower than my third mock exam. I refused to believe it. I absolutely couldn't accept it. I ran to the admissions office, knelt in front of the window, and begged them to recheck my score. The person behind the window told me expressionlessly that the score was correct and told me to leave. I wouldn't go. I sat on the steps of the admissions office from afternoon until evening. Then Fong Yuanyuan came, crouched in front of me, and handed me a bottle of water. Her eyes red as if she had just cried. She said, Sway, don't be sad. Sometimes things just happen like this. It's normal to underperform. You can try again next year." When she said this, her tone was so sincere that I hugged her and cried right then. I held the person who had stolen my scores, crying like a fool. She patted my back, out of my sight. I don't know what expression she had, but I know what happened afterward. Dazed, I left the admissions office, didn't check the traffic lights while crossing the street. Then there was white light, then darkness. Now I opened my eyes, and she was in front of me again, still wearing that expression, concerned, gentle, understanding, the expression she was best at. Sway, she called out again, waving her hand in front of my eyes. "What's wrong? You look terrible. Didn't sleep well last night." I stared at her. My mind was racing, but my body, my 18-year-old body, untouched by car accidents or death, reacted faster than my thoughts. The corners of my mouth instinctively curled up. "I'm fine," I heard my own voice say. Maybe I got up too fast, feeling a little dizzy. Fong Yuanyuan let out a sigh of relief and patted me on the shoulder. "You scared me to death. Your eyes were wide open just now, not moving at all. I thought something was wrong with you." I smiled but didn't say anything. Her hand remained on my shoulder. I glanced down. Her hand was pale and slender, with nails painted a soft pink. These were the same hands that had handed me that bottle of water in my past life, the same hands that, behind my back, swapped my college entrance exam scores with the school heartthrob she had a crush on. No, it wasn't just the scores. I closed my eyes and opened them again, remembering everything. That day, when she came out of the admissions office to comfort me, she wasn't just there to console me. She was there to check my scores, to confirm whether her father, the admissions office director, had done the job cleanly. After confirming, she came to inspect the results. She watched as her childhood best friend, who had always outshone her in everything, finally and irreversibly fell into the mud. How could she not be happy? I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, the sensation of being alive. The lungs of an 18-year-old were healthy and young, inhaling the crisp sweetness of an early summer morning. The curtains weren't fully drawn, and a sliver of sunlight squeezed through the gap. Landing on the desk was piled high with study materials, and the desk lamp was still on, Probably left on from last night. Wait, study materials. I sat up abruptly, scanning the room. This was my room, not the rented apartment where everything went wrong in my past life, but the room I lived in when I was 18. A faded world map hung on the wall, the bookshelf crammed with textbooks and a few well-worn novels. A cheap plastic alarm clock sat on the nightstand, its display showing the date. June 3, 2024. I stared at those numbers for a long time. June 3. The college entrance exam was on June 7, and on June 5, 2 days from now, was the date of the early admission exam. The early admission exam. My fingers clenched the bedsheet tightly. In my past life, I hadn't taken that exam, not because I didn't want to, but because Fang Yuanyuan had told me the spots were already reserved through connections, and it'd be a waste of time to try. At the time, I'd believed her and even felt grateful for her concern. Now, looking back, she was afraid I'd take the exam, afraid I'd earn that spot on my own merit. That would have ruined her and her father's plans. Sui, are you feeling better? Fang Yuanyuan's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. She stood by the bed, backpack slung over her shoulder, clearly ready to leave for school. I have to go now. The homeroom teacher's in charge of morning study hall today. If I'm late, I'll have to stand as punishment. She stuck out her tongue playfully. If you're really not feeling well, I can ask for leave on your behalf. No need. I lifted the blanket and stepped barefoot onto the floor. The coolness seeped up from the soles of my feet, real, solid, and grounding. I'll go with you, I said. Really, don't force yourself. Really. I stood in front of her, our eyes locking. Her eyes were beautiful, large, round, with long, curled lashes. They always looked innocent and sincere, no matter who was looking at them. In my past life, I was deceived by those very eyes for 3 whole years. I treated her as my best friend, confiding in her about everything, sharing every secret, including my exam admission number. I remembered now, the day before the college entrance exam, she came to me specifically to ask for my admission number, saying she wanted to check the system for any changes in my exam room. I was memorizing politics at the time, and I casually recited it to her. My admission number, my ID number, everything. I still remember her smiling and saying, Sui, yours is mine, right? I thought she was joking, so I laughed too. Yes, my things are yours. Looking back now, that wasn't a joke. It was a taunt from the victor, long before the game even began, but I was too stupid to understand a single word. Sui, what are you spacing out for? Fang Yuanyuan waved her hand in front of my face again. I snapped back to reality and smiled at her. That smile must have looked natural, because she smiled back, then turned toward the door. Hurry up and get ready, I'll wait for you downstairs. I watched her back disappear through the doorway, then turned and slowly walked toward the bathroom. The mirror reflected the face of an 18-year-old girl, pale skin, a sharp chin, large eyes, but the gaze in those eyes was different from the one I had at 18. The 18-year-old Lin Sui had eyes filled with hope and anxiety, the kind every student feels before the college entrance exam, trembling with uncertainty and anticipation. But now, the eyes in the mirror were as still as 2 dead pools of water. I stared at my reflection for a long time, then turned on the faucet and cupped cold water in my hands, splashing it onto my face. The water was icy, so cold it jolted me awake. Droplets trickled down my chin, falling onto the sink with soft, delicate sounds. I lifted my head and looked into the mirror once more. The dead, stagnant eyes finally moved, and the corners of my mouth slightly curled upward. It wasn't the gentle, innocent, harmless smile of Fang Yuanyuan. This smile was light and cold, like a glint of light reflected off a blade. Fang Yuanyuan, didn't you say that what's mine is yours? Fine, in this life, I'll give you all my pain, my despair, my death, every last bit, returned exactly as it was. But what you and your father stole from me, my scores, my life, my future, I will take it all back, and this time, I won't just reclaim it. I'll make sure you lose even the right to steal. I changed into my school uniform, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and walked downstairs lightly. Fang Yuanyuan was waiting for me under the plane tree at the bottom of the stairs. Her white school skirt fluttered in the wind, revealing 2 straight, slender legs. Sunlight fell upon her, enveloping her entire figure in a soft halo. When she saw me coming down, she waved at me, her smile brighter than the sun. What a beautiful scene, I silently said in my heart. Enjoy it. Fang Yuanyuan, this is the last time you'll stand in the sunlight and smile at me. I walked toward her, my face warm and natural with a smile, walking side by side with her towards school. Along the way, she chattered non-stop about school gossip, how 2 students had been caught by the homeroom teacher for dating, who had scored first in the grade on the mock exam, how the math teacher had a new hairstyle that made his face look bigger. I smiled and responded as she spoke, occasionally interjecting a few words, acting like a normal senior high school girl about to take the college entrance exam, but my mind was racing. The recommendation exam was on June 5th, meaning I only had 2 days. In my previous life, I hadn't taken this exam, but I remembered one thing. Shortly after the college entrance exam, someone had posted a recollection of the actual questions from the recommendation exam on an online forum. At the time, I was utterly despondent, locked in my room scrolling through my phone, and happened to see that post. The questions were difficult, especially the comprehensive section, but because I had read them over and over again, and later kept thinking about what would have happened if I had taken the exam, I remembered them vividly. All those questions were now firmly in my mind. 2 days were enough time for me to memorize every answer word by word. The problem was, how could I register? The registration deadline for the recommendation exam had been half a month ago, and the homeroom teacher had announced it in class. I had originally wanted to sign up, but Fang Yuanyuan had talked me out of it. She gave me many reasons. Too few spots, the exam was too hard, better to focus on preparing for the college entrance exam. I believed her, so I didn't register. Now I had to find a way to obtain the exam eligibility without raising anyone's suspicion. By the way, Sui, Fang Yuanyuan suddenly stopped, turning to look at me. You said last time that your mom asked you to sign up for that recommendation exam. Did you end up registering? Yes. My heartbeat didn't quicken, nor did my expression change. I'd experienced too much in my past life. Such a small situation no longer stirred my emotions. No, I said lightly. Didn't you say yourself that kind of exam was hopeless? I'd better focus on preparing for the college entrance exam. Fang Yuanyuan nodded, her expression flawless. Yes, I checked for you. There are only 2 recommendation slots this year, and they've already been reserved for children of teachers. You'd be wasting your time even if you took the test, right? I know, so you didn't sign up. No. She seemed to exhale in relief, such a subtle movement, but my gaze happened to fall on her collarbone, and I saw the delicate bones rise slightly. That's good, she said. Let's focus on the college entrance exam. After it's over, I'll treat you to that new hot pot place. Sure, I smiled and replied, adding the other sentence silently in my mind. Fang Yuanyuan, you asked me if I signed up because you were afraid, right? You were afraid that if I took the test and passed, even if you and your dad stole my college entrance exam score, it wouldn't matter, because I wouldn't need it anymore. You were right, your intuition was sharp, but too late. You can't stop me now. By the time we reached the school gate, the sunlight had fully brightened, the teaching building's exterior was bleached white by the light, and on the playground, students were running drills, their shouts faintly drifting over. On the electronic display at the gate, red text scrolled, "For days until the college entrance exam." I stopped, looking up at the words, "For days." In my past life, I strained every muscle to reach that goal, only to be kicked off at the last moment. This time, I won't cross that rickety bridge. The recommendation exam is my way around it, and Fang Yuanyuan and her father, the director of the admissions office, are still standing at the end of that bridge, waiting to steal from someone who won't even walk across. Thinking of this, I almost laughed out loud. I lowered my head and walked through the gate with Fang Yuanyuan. The sunlight fell on my back, warm and comforting. The early summer of 18, everything was just beginning. The air carried the scent of gardenias, and the locust trees by the playground were in full bloom, white flowers covering their branches. When the wind blew, petals drifted down like snow. I took a deep breath, inhaling every detail of this world, the living world, the world reborn. This time, I would take every step firmly, settle every account clearly. The recommendation exam on June 5th would be my first stop. Fang Yuanyuan, are you ready? The things you stole, I'll make you pay back double, and this time, you won't need to ask me, what's mine is yours, because from now on, everything you have will become mine, your life, your future, everything you rely on. I'll dismantle it piece by piece, just as you did to me in my past life. No, I'll do it even more thoroughly. I walked into the school building and glanced at myself in the mirror on the wall at the corner of the stairs. My uniform was neat, my ponytail was tidy, and my face bore the faint exhaustion typical of a senior high school girl drowning in a sea of exam questions. Everything looked normal, No one knew that beneath this 18-year-old face lay someone who had died once before, and no one knew what kind of spectacular revenge this seemingly harmless girl was plotting in her heart. The morning self-study bell hadn't rung yet, but the classroom was already full. That's just how senior year was. Everyone was like a wound-up clockwork, knowing exactly when and how fast to move without anyone pushing them. I sat at my desk, flipping open my textbook, eyes fixed on the words on the page, but not a single one registered. I was thinking about how to secure a spot in the recommendation exam. Should I go straight to the homeroom teacher? No, the registration deadline had passed half a month ago. If I went now, she would definitely ask why I hadn't signed up earlier. What would I say? That my best friend talked me out of it. She would just think I was indecisive and lacked initiative. Plus, if word got out, Fang Yuanyuan would immediately realize I was making moves behind her back. I couldn't risk tipping her off. I needed a reason, one the homeroom teacher couldn't refuse, while also avoiding Fang Yuanyuan's suspicion. Sui, did you do yesterday's math test? Zhou Ting, sitting in front of me, turned around, waving a test paper in her hand. I glanced at her and suddenly remembered something. Zhou Ting was the class math representative, and her mom was the deputy director of the school's academic affairs office. In my past life, after the college entrance exams, at a class reunion, Zhou Ting got drunk and told me something. She said that on the day of the recommendation exam, several seats in the testing room were empty. A lot of people had signed up, but many didn't show up because they thought they had no chance. She also mentioned how angry her mom had been because the wasted spots would hurt the school's chances of securing recommendation quotas the following year. Several empty seats meant the exam wasn't full. Sui, Zhou Ting waved the test paper again. What about you? Did you do it? Yeah, I snapped out of it, rummaging through my bag to hand her my paper. I didn't really get the last problem, so I just winged it. You winged it too? I thought I was the only one who didn't get it, she said, lowering her voice. Hey, did you hear? The recommendation exam is the day after tomorrow. That kid from the next class, the one ranked first in our grade, Zhou something, was so nervous they threw up in the bathroom yesterday. The top student is nervous. Duh, there are only 2 recommendation spots. Who wouldn't be nervous? Zhou Ting sighed. But it's none of our business anyway. Let those who signed up be nervous. My pen paused for a moment. Hey, Zhou Ting, I said, deliberately making my tone sound casual. Do you sign up for the early admission exam directly through your mom? Yeah, the academic office handles the registration. Why, didn't you already decide not to sign up? I didn't. I put down my pen and turned to look at her. But now I want to. Zhou Ting blinked, momentarily stunned. It took her several seconds to react. Now, the exam is the day after tomorrow. You're signing up now. Why not? It's not that you can't. The slots aren't full yet, so you can definitely register. But, Sui, are you serious? You haven't prepared at all, and you're just going to take it the day after tomorrow? She looked at me like I was talking nonsense. Are you under too much pressure? Too much pressure. That was a good reason, or rather, a good excuse. Whether I was under pressure or not, I didn't know. I forced a smile, deliberately making it look strained and fragile. But Zhou Ting, I've been having nightmares lately. I dream about failing the college entrance exam, about my scores being swapped, I paused, lowering my voice, about really terrifying things. Zhou Ting's expression shifted, not suspicion, but concern. These days, which student doesn't have some anxiety? In the senior year hallways, more people have cried than laughed. To her, my words weren't crazy. They were the normal reaction of someone pushed to the brink by the pressure of the exams. Don't scare me like that. Zhou Ting put down her test paper and reached out to touch my arm. Haven't you been sleeping well these past few days? Your dark circles are showing. I haven't. That much was true. The image of that 387 from my past life reported to my dreams every night. So you want to take the early admission exam, to give yourself another option. What if you pass? Even if you don't, it won't affect the college entrance exam. Right, Zhou Ting thought for a moment, then nodded. That's true. Alright, I'll go talk to my mom at noon and have her add your name to the list. It shouldn't be a problem. The roster isn't finalized yet. Don't tell anyone, I added, looking at her seriously. If I fail, it'd be too embarrassing. Don't worry, I'm the best at keeping secrets. Zhou Ting made a zipping motion over her lips, then gave me a once-over. But Sui, you really haven't prepared at all. The exam is the day after tomorrow, and you're just starting now. She shook her head, probably thinking I was grasping at straws. Fine, hurry up, I'll help you sort it out by noon. Thanks, I turned back to my textbook. My heart was racing, but my face betrayed nothing. The first path was clear. With Zhou Ting's mom's connections, registration wouldn't be a problem, and Zhou Ting herself was tight-lipped. If I specifically told her not to, she wouldn't even mention it to Fang Yuanyuan. The real issue was Fang Yuanyuan. Given her personality, she'd definitely plant eyes around me, not Zhou Ting. She wasn't close to Fang Yuanyuan. Someone else. My gaze swept discreetly across the classroom. Chen Jiaxu, sitting by the window in the last row. Every girl in school called him the campus heartthrob, and I'd done the same, but now, looking at him, I felt nothing. In my past life, Fang Yuanyuan had stolen my exam scores for him. What was their relationship? I didn't know. Did Fang Yuanyuan ever tell him the truth? I didn't care. All I knew was that he'd taken that undeserved score, got into one of the top 3 universities in the country, and then his life had been smooth sailing, his future bright. While I lay on the cold pavement, Chen Jiaxu was bent over his desk, solving problems, his profile bathed in morning light, looking like the male lead from a youth novel. He seemed to sense someone watching and glanced up in my direction. I quickly averted my eyes, pretending to focus on my textbook. No, not pretending. I should let him see me looking at him. I lifted my head again, meeting his gaze, and gave him a slight nod. He paused, then nodded back before returning to his work. The interaction was brief, almost imperceptible, but I knew Chen Jiaxu would remember it, not because he had any feelings for me, but because of his connection to Fang Yuanyuan. In my past life, I hadn't realized how close they were, but if Fang Yuanyuan was willing to risk stealing scores for him, their relationship must have been special. If Chen Jiaxu mentioned to Fang Yuanyuan, Lin Suisui looked at me today, how would she react? She'd panic, she'd wonder, does Lin Suisui like Chen Jiaxu? Would she do something reckless because of this teenage drama? That was exactly what I wanted, to divert Fang Yuanyuan's attention to my romantic inclinations rather than my academic plans, to make her think I was pining for the school heartthrob, too distracted to focus on any entrance exams. A love-struck fool was far easier to handle than a clear-headed avenger. The morning self-study bell rang. Homeroom teacher Old Chen walked in holding a teacup, scanned the class, and paused his gaze on me for a moment. Zhou Ting must have told her something in advance. She didn't say anything, just walked to the podium and began going over the pre-college entrance exam reminders. I kept my head down, scribbling on scratch paper as if taking notes. In reality, I was silently reciting the questions from the comprehensive exam for the early admission test. The questions from that post surfaced in my mind one by one. First question: read a classical Chinese passage and analyze the author's political stance. The excerpt was from Comprehensive Mirror to Aid in Governance, discussing the Tang dynasty's imperial examination reforms. My hand moved swiftly across the paper, not writing the questions, but jotting down answer strategies and key scoring points. The original poster from my past life was a top student. They hadn't just recalled the questions but also included their own answers and the teacher's feedback. I'd read them over and over until those answers felt carved into my bones. I filled an entire sheet of scratch paper. I switched to a fresh sheet and continued with the math section. 2 major problems, one on analytic geometry, the other on sequences and inequalities. The solutions were complex, but I remembered every key step scoring point. In my past life, I'd imagined countless times how I'd answer if I'd taken the test, which auxiliary lines to use for the geometry problem, what to prove first in the sequence problem before deriving the rest. Back then, it was like gazing at heaven from hell, knowing there was no chance but unable to stop thinking about it. Now it was different. Now I stood at heaven's gate, key in hand. I wrote through the entire morning self-study session. Fang Yuanyuan glanced back at me twice, each time seeing me scribbling furiously. She probably assumed I was working on math problems and didn't pay it much mind. First period was Chinese. The teacher, a woman in her 50s, spoke slowly, and the classroom was drowsy. I propped up my textbook to shield my face and kept silently transcribing the English section on scratch paper. The closed test was a short story about integrity. The reading comprehension was a popular science article on artificial intelligence. I remembered a few particularly tricky blanks in the close. The original poster had said they'd gotten 2 wrong and been scolded by the teacher. They said the correct answer was asterisk. Nevertheless asterisk, not furthermore, because the sentences were contrasting, not progressive. I wrote down all these details. By the end, my fingers ached too much to grip the pen, but I didn't stop. Time was too tight. The test was the day after tomorrow. I had to carve every answer into my bones. By the time the lunch bell rang, I'd filled both sides of 5 sheets of scratch paper. I folded them carefully and tucked them into my uniform pocket. These sheets were more precious than the actual exam papers. No, they were the exam papers, just from a timeline that hadn't happened yet. Sway, heading to the cafeteria, Fang Yuanyuan had somehow walked up beside me, one hand resting on my shoulder. Her fingers were slightly cold, the touch like a slender snake. Go on. I stood up, closing my textbook with a flick of my hand. I'm starving. What have you been writing during morning self-study? You look so focused. Math. I answered casually. I couldn't solve the last problem on yesterday's test, so I tried again out of frustration. Did you figure it out? No. Fang Yuanyuan smiled and looped her arm through mine as we walked out. Her arm was soft, clinging to me like a vine. I resisted the urge to shake it off. There were many people in the cafeteria, and senior high school students had a special window, with a long line. Fang Yuanyuan and I were standing in line, and she kept talking to me, while I responded half-heartedly, Hey, did you see the new t-shirt Chen Jiaxu wore today? It seems to be a limited edition, she suddenly said, her tone sounding casual, but my ears immediately perked up. She's here. She is testing me. In my previous life, I also had a crush on Chen Jiaxu. To be fair, probably half the girls in school had a thing for him at some point, and I was no exception, but I never told anyone, not even Fang Yuanyuan. I thought I'd kept it well hidden, but now it seems she had already figured it out. Her eyes are sharper than I imagined. I didn't notice. I lowered my gaze, letting my lashes veil my expression. What does it matter to me what she wears? Still putting on an act with me? Fang Yuanyuan nudged me with her elbow, smiling suggestively. I know exactly what you're thinking. I didn't respond. Doing so would have given me away. It was better to say nothing, to let her think I was unwilling to admit it, that I was shy or guilty. Sure enough, Fang Yuanyuan didn't press further, just gave me a meaningful look before changing the subject. After getting our food and sitting down, she picked at the greens on her plate and casually asked, By the way, have your parents said anything to you lately about the college entrance exam? What could they say? Just the usual. Study hard, do well, nothing else. What else could there be? I looked up at her. Why do you keep asking about this? Just concerned about you, she said with a smile, placing a piece of meat in my bowl. Eat more, you've lost weight recently. Staring at the meat in my bowl, I suddenly felt like laughing. Fang Yuanyuan, you don't care whether I've lost weight, you care about whether I'll take the early admission exam. You keep probing, trying to see if I suspect anything. Don't worry, I won't let you find out, because I've lived an extra lifetime, and in that lifetime, I learned one thing: never show your hand to the enemy, never. During afternoon classes, I continued silently writing out the answers on scratch paper, covering both physics and chemistry. Thankfully, the science questions on the comprehensive exam weren't too difficult, mostly testing foundational knowledge. I recited the answers twice from start to finish, making sure I wouldn't forget a single word. During the second break, Zhou Ting discreetly flashed me a done gesture. I nodded at her, feeling the weight in my chest lift. The registration was settled. Now, there was just one thing left. I needed a plausible explanation for why I'd show up at the early admission exam the day after tomorrow, because Fang Yuanyuan would find out. The exam was in our school's main building. There was no way she wouldn't know. The moment she passed by and saw my name on the candidate list, or heard someone say, Lin Sui is taking it too, she'd be on high alert. I had to arrange everything before she caught on. After school, I deliberately lingered until almost everyone had left. Only a few stragglers remained in the classroom. Fang Yuanyuan said she was helping the physics teacher organize materials and told me to go ahead. I nodded, watching her back as she walked out.